What do you do if your baby won't eat solid foods?
Khana nahi khaya, hasn't eaten. What are we going? Well, give the baby a rasgulla. The message goes in: if I don't eat, I get something nice to eat.
Right.
So that cannot happen. If you don't eat, you go hungry.
Because most of the complaints from parents is my child doesn't eat.
Mealtime should be short, sweet, plenty of conversation, no screens, preferably with the family eating at the same time so the baby learns by imitation.
Baby foods like Cerelac being very unhealthy for kids. What is your take on that?
Again, it's something which is a necessary evil. This is a good way to get these important micronutrients and an energy-dense food into the baby. These are designer foods. These are not packaged. They looked at the research of what toddlers lack, and it's an attempt to rectify the imbalance.
Now, if you are a young parent who has a child, I insist that you get your entire family together who's responsible for your child's nutrition to watch this podcast, because in this podcast, we will be discussing the most important topic of nutrition for children with Dr. Chandan Ray. He's one of the most renowned pediatricians in the country, and you love the flavor in which he talks about nutrition. And the reason that I want all your family members to come is because they all need to be educated to what to feed your child. I hope this podcast serves as a nice template for all of you. And please give me your feedback and your comments. And please go hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Dr. Chandan Ray, welcome to Infinite Health. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
Dr. Chandan Ray, I really want to talk about, baby nutrition today. Because it sets a template for a lot of young mothers who want to understand what to do with it. I meet a lot of couples around me and they keep saying that, oh, my child is having a sugar rush. Is that in any way related to actual sugar?
Well, what is a sugar rush? Basically, sugar will cause rush. Sugar is a drug. It's not labeled as a drug, but basically it stimulates those portions of the brain. And I've seen children, they are so addicted to sugar. If there is nothing sweet for them to eat, they will raid the kitchen cupboards to look at sugar and eat handfuls of crystalline sugar.
Right.
It's so bad. It's so addictive.
I was one of those kids.
Right, okay.
So how does fiber play an important role in a child's nutrition, and where do you get it for a child?
It's very, very important. A lot of children who come to see me are constipated. They do not clear their bowels. There's a big definition what a layperson thinks of constipation and what me as a health professional thinks of constipation. They think it's hard stool. I think is the colon empty or not. Now, sometimes there is a big problem about this because children, when they wake up, they rush for time, they're stressed in the morning, they do not poop. If in school, they get the urge to poop, they will not poop in school, they will come home. In the meantime, they retain the stools and the colon becomes bigger and bigger. And this leads to, if it in the long run leads to a problem where the child is incompletely defecating.
Right.
So the baby may be passing stool every day, but the total colon is not emptied. One of the major problems is a lack of fiber. Food consumption by children, toddlers, depends on appearance and taste. If you add fiber to anything, it doesn't look good and it certainly doesn't taste well. Look at the ataka, instant noodles. Do they taste the same one as maida ka?
Right.
So you add the fiber, the taste goes. So, and a result, it's very difficult to, you have to strike a balance. So how do you get that balance? You have to actively encourage the child to have fruits, whole fruits, not juice, including the seeds. Vegetables, don't peel your vegetables so much. The baby needs the peels. The peel acts as a good source of fiber. Pulses, don't buy yellow dals. Buy the chilka wala dals. All dals are sold with chilka variety and yellow variety. So get chilka wala dals. Try to get things like rajma, chola chana and all that. Incorporate into the baby's diet. Choose whole grains. Nowadays, mothers going to supermarkets, they have the whole gamut of grains over there. So they can choose the varieties which are whole grain rather than going for polished rice.
Right.
As a base. So fiber intake has to go up. It's very important. Because this fiber is actually food for the bacteria that reside in your intestine. It keeps them happy. Again, happy bacteria means you have a happy tummy, and a happy tummy means you're a happy child.
Right.
So it's very, very important to eat fiber. And most of us falter on that score. We eat much less fiber than we are supposed to do.
You said something very interesting. You said fruits, not juices. So, do you feel that juices are not really relevant because a lot of parents give it to their children?
My advice is don't waste your money on juice. Give them whole fruit. The juice portion has a little bit of sugar and flavor in it, but the real thing is in the fiber and the pulp that the fruit has.
But like just coming back to this conversation on solid foods, what do you do if your baby won't eat solid foods?
That's part and parcel of the baby, really. Babies are fussy eaters. Sometimes they will go in phases of low appetite. Just bear with it. Sometimes they don't grow for a few months. Just bear with it. All babies grow.
Right.
And they will ultimately, the focus is to be very consistent in your approach. A lot of people, if the baby is not eating, especially grandparents come in over here, they put pressure on mother. Khana nahi khaya, hasn't eaten. What are we going? Give the baby a rasgulla. Or something like that. That's a bad the message goes in, if I don't eat, I get something nice to eat.
Right.
So that cannot happen. If you don't eat, you go hungry. Nothing is going to happen to you for a hungry child. There are millions of children who go to bed hungry. One more is not going to affect the equation at all.
Right.
But you must be firm that you have to inculcate healthy eating habits, which means, you should have thali meals. What is a thali meal? I find that nowadays you find children with buffet meals. So they will have rice, they'll have dal, or sometimes they won't have dal, they'll just have bindi and plain rice. They cannot choose. अगर घर में दो सब्जी two vegetables होगा, you can have two vegetables, a little bit of dal, a balanced Indian sort of diet. You have to finish that in a reasonable time, maybe 20 minutes. Otherwise, a bell will ring and it will be taken away.
This is a very interesting point you made. You said that they don't have food so that they can have whatever they want.
Yes, they do.
And do you think
grandparents
that the
will say,
grandparents are to blame?
Bacha is hungry, how can we eat? All these things come in. Sentimentality comes in. And the child plays on that. The child plays on that.
I think this is a big lesson for all the grandparents also who are probably listening to this, that they need to stop.
They need to be now so soft, really. Grandparents are wonderful people. They're never soft with their kids. But when it comes to grandchildren, they just melt.
So, just to talk about the opposite end of the spectrum, can introducing solid foods before 6 months lead to digestive issues in infants?
There are very few medical indications to give solid foods before 6 months. The World Health Organization has mandated that all babies be breastfed till 6 months because babies need protein. Whether that protein comes in the form of breast milk or formula milk, doesn't matter. Protein is protein and it's necessary for the growing process. If you start solids, the milk intake goes down and the baby gets more energy but less protein. But that's probably not a really good idea. After 6 months, the baby is more active, the energy requirements goes up. So you have to give more energy. So in that point, after 6 months, breast milk is not enough. You will have to start solids.
Right. There is this specific habit of force feeding infants or toddlers, which is very commonly found in households. Like, how can parents know when to stop feeding? Because most of the complaints from parents is, my child doesn't eat.
Right. I have a very simple take. There are two factors involved in this. One is quality and one is quantity. Now, parents have no control over the quantity. The child decides quantity. But parents have 100% control over quality. So you give good quality food and let the child eat as much as required. Do not give bad quality food with the hope that the child will consume more and more. It doesn't work that way.
Right. And what about distraction feeding then? Because distraction feeding and excessive screen time during screen meals, is that risky for kids?
Yes, it is. First of all, it's a bad habit. We want to get the babies away from screens, out onto the playing fields. And what happens is if you do the distraction, the meal goes on and on because the baby knows that immediately after I finish the last mouthful, right, everyone will say, up, let's get up, go to bed, turn the TV off. So the baby has this tendency of prolonging the meal for forever and ever. And that is not allowed. Mealtime should be short, sweet, plenty of conversation, no screens, preferably with the family eating at the same time so the baby learns by imitation.
Right.
A variety of foods. And not focusing on what the baby likes to eat.
Right, fair enough. But Then how do you solve for vitamin deficiencies that we see in children today?
What vitamin deficiencies? There are only two vitamin deficiencies really that are needing solving. Number one is vitamin D, and the other is iron. Iron deficiency affects almost 60% of children in India, and it takes a toll on your mental health development. So, iron deficiency is very, very important, and you need to really look for it actively and treat it. Similarly, with vitamin D, very common in spite of all the sunlight we're exposed to. Because of the pollution, those sunlights are not reaching us. Children spend very little time outdoors. They're indoors mainly, so you have a lot of vitamin D deficiency. The rest of these vitamins that are normally touted in multivitamins are probably not that common really. So, a lot of people take, not only in India really, throughout the world, take a multivitamin supplement. But really there is not much evidence that sort of untargeted just taking a multivitamin pill prevents any long-term health issues.
Because a lot of companies have come up with these multivitamins for children, and a lot of mothers probably use them. So what are your views on those multivitamins?
Most of the time they're not required.
Right.
They will come out in the urine, and some companies give you these gummies which children treat as sweets, and if the mother is not around, sometimes they can consume a lot of those gummies, and hypervitaminosis is a problem.
Right.
Okay, so that is also not to be
especially in babies.
Yeah, especially in babies. The other thing, that too much supplementation, we learnt a lesson during where everyone was having zinc supplements, and that led to a temporary increase in the what is called black fungus, mucormycosis, black fungus. It was, and as soon as zinc intake went down, it disappeared. You must remember, bacteria also need vitamins and minerals too.
Because something that a lot of health influencers nowadays are talking about are, baby foods like Cerelac being very unhealthy for kids. What is your take on that?
Again, it's something which is a necessary evil. Now, where did these things are called fortified infant cereals. Okay, now what is the fortification? Now, if you look at it, babies, when they're in the toddler 6 months onwards, they require a lot more energy. So basically, let's look at in some numbers. So a baby who's 10 kilos consumes about 1,000 calories. You, 6 or 7 times the size, you're consuming 2,000 calories. Okay, babies need a lot of calories for growth. So, and they also have small tummies. So you have to have very more concentrated stuff inside the babies. If you do indigenous foods, what happens is that sometimes it's very semi-solid, more water in it, so it doesn't have the calorie density. These infant cereals are manufactured in such a way that they have a greater calorie density. Number two, there is something called micronutrient deficiencies. It involves vitamin D, iron, some elements like zinc, sometimes vitamin A, iodine. Now these are ready-made mixed inside these cereals, and they come at a very cost-effective price also. So we were talking about supplements. So the supplements are expensive. So if you give an iron supplement or a vitamin D, it's quite expensive, and also compliance is low. People forget. So it's much better as to fortify cereals. Now, in some countries in Europe, fortification of cereals is mandatory. In India, we have few varieties of atta which comes with iron in it. Now, do people eat that fortified iron? No, it doesn't taste. The rotis are not soft enough. So fortification is so this is a good way to get these important micronutrients and an energy dense food into the baby. These are designer foods. These are not packaged. They looked at the research of what toddlers lack, and it's an attempt to rectify the imbalance.
So you're saying that this is a necessary evil, even though some health influencers disregard it. I mean, and that you're not saying that this is perpetually the best food, but this is required in some places.
Sometimes, if say for example a child consuming 4 meals a day, 7 days you have 28 meals, give 4 or 5.
Right.
What is the big deal?
And also because, like you said, that it's also cost effective. So while the rich people can afford maybe other alternatives, I mean, as a mass product population where people might not be able to afford all those supplements, I think this is the way to go for them.
Yes, but prices need to come down because it's not really for the poor people.
Right.
Poor people, the best way for a poor people to manage their household finances is to use family food.
Right.
In that case, you have a more targeted approach. You have to give them, multivitamin, not multivitamins so much, but vitamin D and iron supplements, and make sure they're consuming a little bit of orange fruits and things,
Right.
because orange has a lot of vitamin D. So carrots, pumpkin,
Right.
they would give you enough vitamin A. Yeah, vitamin A.
Sounds good. Dr. Ray, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. It was lovely understanding all about the nutrition for kids. I think this will serve as an amazing template for all the women out there who are watching this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.